It's time for the Hockey Minute, your source for all of today's hockey news with some opinion. Strap in for the fastest news in the NHL. This episode is proudly brought to you by fucking nobody. We don't have any sponsors. Now, here's your hosts, Brandon and Ryan.
And here we are. Welcome back to another edition of the Hockey Minute. I'm your host, Brandon. With me, as always, my co-host, Ryan. And today we have a very special member of the Hockey Minute. Jules is with us here to break down the Rangers situation and the Rangers goaltending situation and what a mess they're in coming up. So let's say hi to everybody. Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. How are you guys?
I'm doing excellent. Just happy to be recording, buddy. Happy to be doing this, and excited to hear what Jules has to say about the Rangers. So, how are you doing, Jules?
Yeah, hey guys, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk about this.
Hey, Jules, quickly before you get going, I just want to say thank you for making us sound a lot smarter than we are. So
Exactly.
Really appreciate that.
Oh, jeez.
So, when it comes to the goaltending situation with the Rangers, how would you compare the goalies and kind of what's happening there?
So about the situation, I guess I'll just start off by saying this little cliche, there's one goal to get that cup, and even during a rebuild, you're going to do all that you can to fight for a spot in the playoffs. So that leads me in to talk to about our first guy, Igor Shesterkin, Prince Igor, as some like to call him. But yeah, he's definitely come out of the gate strong. Since they called him up, slapped people left, right, and center. The team had a 9-game winning streak, their best this season, and up until the break, he had a 10-2 record. So. When he became the number one over Lundqvist, which I personally wasn't surprised because, of course, he had an awesome start. But obviously, the biggest reason was now the team had a chance to make the playoffs, whereas before they were sort of slipping a little bit. With Georgiev, I think he's also kind of proved to be a valuable goaltender for the Blue Shirts. He's steadily improved his game since his debut back in 2017. During that time, when Igor was out due to his rib injury, he was able to keep that winning streak going for a bit longer. But of course, he still has to work out some kinks. He still lets in some goals here and there that I think the other two can stop just a little bit more, just a little bit better. But overall, I think he makes a solid backup. And then as for Hank, in the most recent years, I felt like whenever he's in net, it's always kind of a bit of a gamble. On his best days, he's locked in. When our D is struggling, which if you're a Ranger fan, it's not fresh news, but when he's in, he's standing on his head trying to keep the team in the game. On bad days, he flops around the crease a bit, lets in some silly goals, and frankly, I think he's lost some of his consistency. And I'm referring to the time when it was just the Lundqvist-Georgiev tandem. Before January, he was 9-16, so kind of a rocky start there.
So, do you see Georgiev as having the potential to be a starter, or is he just basically set to be a backup for Shesterkin going forward?
Personally, I'd see him set up to be just the backup. He proves himself, like he proves that he can man the fort, definitely. But I think out of the two, Shesterkin's a lot stronger. So
Yeah, everything I've heard about, I'm going to butcher that. Shesterkin? Is that how I say it?
yeah, I think
I love it.
Shesterkin, yeah.
Yeah, like everything I've heard about him is that the Rangers had seen him as the number one, but was Georgiev always on the radar? Like I don't know too much about their situation, but it seemed like he came up out of nowhere as well.
I think in the beginning he probably was looked at as a number one for a while, but then Shesterkin came in, and I think he was set as the backup from then on out. I think actually a few teams were interested in acquiring him. At least I heard like a lot of rumors like up until the deadline this year that he might go to Toronto or like a few other random teams, and he ended up staying with us.
So when it comes to looking at Henrik and his future and his future with the Rangers and kind of how this whole situation has been handled, I mean, I know that he was scratched, I don't know how many times, I want to say 3 times last season. Maybe I'm wrong there, but how do you see it being handled moving forward?
Since Igor's debut in January, his games were definitely cut significantly. He went from playing on average like 8 games a month to like 2 to 3. So, yeah, I mean, I can't speak for Lundqvist,
Wow.
but I know that there are some fans who definitely saw that as like kind of a slap in the face. And I mean, for him to put 15 years into this organization, working so hard to just be cut like that, it's certainly a little messy. But like I've said, like on the other side of the coin, I could see why they would have to do something like that. Because when you're desperate to claw, they're away into a playoff spot. From a cold business approach, sometimes you gotta do something like that. But yeah, I don't know. But I would say, well, I listened to a lot of his interviews because, of course, I do. But yeah, he states in a lot of like post-practice interviews back in February, he wanted to sit down, have a discussion about a situation, which I'm sure will definitely happen. Personally, I'm glad I'm not a part of this because it's certainly a tricky situation. But on one hand, like the rebuild isn't finished yet. I'd like to see him finish his last year strong. But on the other hand, he chose to stay in New York when the rebuild was just starting. He had the opportunity to explore his options and land with another team that could give him the cup. So, and we can't ignore the fact that Hank's 38 with one more year left on his contract, and then there's 2 other strong goalies in their mid-20s who already have a few years of professional experience under their belt. So,
So with his future, can you see him going somewhere else? Can you see him going to Florida and being the backup for 3 seasons, or do you think that he's got too much pride that he's just gonna say see ya when his contract's up?
I most likely think he'll stay seated. He said that he loves staying in New York, so, and I think a lot of people would feel kind of weird just sort of seeing him move to a different team anyway.
Right.
But even now, like, and of course, I apologize in advance for piling on some more bad news. But with all this might just get thrown out the window anyway, because due to the COVID pandemic, there's a good chance next season that there'll be some salary cap issues league wide, and there's a possibility that they may be forced to buy him out. And the Rangers aren't unfamiliar with that sort of thing either. So,
well, but like actually, I was thinking maybe we could talk about Lundqvist just for a second more, and the possibilities of him like after his contract is out with New York. Do you see him signing another contract, or is he totally done?
I would like to see him in front of the camera as an analyst. Actually, he's become the face of the Rangers organization. A lot of fans love him on and off the ice, and he's a smart guy. In his interviews, he doesn't just say the generic lines that everyone's used to hearing. He kind of analyzes everything, says how it is. So I could definitely see him in the studio as a commentator, maybe even talking beside his former teammate Steve Valiquette too. That'd be pretty cool. So,
and he's handsome as shit.
Oh yeah, for sure. That hair. I mean, come on.
He's perfect for TV. Although I know this is totally frivolous, but somebody pointed out how crooked his hairline is, and I don't want this to be just shitting on anything to do with Lundqvist. He's a perfect looking human being, but if you just look at how sideways it is, and this is coming from a mostly bald man, I'm not throwing shade. I'm just saying it looks like his face was put on sideways, but he's a beautiful human being.
Oh,
for sure.
Don't Jules, don't listen to Brandon. Okay, that's like you. That would be like you looking at Jennifer Aniston and being like, "Well, her elbow's kind of pointy." So
That's exactly what this is. No, 100%. Yeah, and he probably does have pointy elbows, but that's beside the point. So, I mean, is there anything else that you kind of see going forward for Henrik and that whole situation? Like, how do you really see this playing out in full?
I just have a feeling that he might be done. Like, I mean, that's just what I think. I mean, I just hate to see him get screwed over, though. But I don't know.
Right.
When you say done, do you mean like bought out, or is there market for a trade? Like you said, he's making $8.5 million. He just turned 38 years old. I mean, is that maybe a conversation that's happened in that market of what could we possibly get for this guy?
I mean, I haven't really heard much of other teams really wanting to acquire him, as far as I know. But And he's made it like pretty adamant that he wants to stay in New York. So I haven't really looked too much into that either, just because it just seemed like that was set in stone. I mean, it would be interesting if, say, like Seattle wanted him or something, but I mean, I think that's a bit of a stretch.
Right.
Yeah. Is there an option too that I know he's got a twin brother back in Sweden? Much like most guys that come overseas, Ovechkin, Datsuk, those types of guys that are it's always a threat, I guess, that they're going to go back and play a couple of years. Do you see if maybe there's no room for him next season, that he might just go back to Sweden and play with his twin?
Oh yeah, well, last night actually, I happened to come across a Swedish article saying many fans would actually like to see him and his brother Joel play together again for Frölunda, which would be a cool thing to see for sure. I actually remember back in 2011 during the Rangers preseason, they played against them in Sweden, and Hank received like this long standing ovation before the game. It was just so much love for the guy. So I'm sure many fans would love to see the two of them reunite. But right now, obviously, Hank's situation is too tricky for him to think about that. And I think Joel has one more year on his contract with the Indians anyway, so who knows? But also, if anyone's interested, you can easily find that game on YouTube. I mean, you might as well. We've all been watching old games lately anyway, so.
Awesome. Well, I mean, is there anything else that you wanted to add on Lundqvist, or are we ready to wrap her up?
If anything, I just want to end this with a little personal note. I'll always be a Lundqvist fan. My very first jersey was number 30. And around that time when I first started watching hockey, he was just starting. So, but I mean, I have so much like respect for the guy. Like, he busted his ass for 15 years. There's no doubt in my mind that he'll be a Hall of Famer. Before his debut, Rangers missed the playoffs for like 7 consecutive seasons. Since his start, he brought them back to the postseason 11 times, broke the Rangers record for most playoff wins at 61, most shutouts at 64, 5 All-Star selections, won the Save Streak competition last year too, won the Vezina in 2012. I think he was like the first goaltender in NHL history to win at least 20 games in 13 consecutive seasons too. But yeah, I did my research with that, but and there's obviously a lot more, but I'm gonna end it there. We'll be here all night, so. But yeah, on that note, just want y'all to remember, whether or not you think it's time for him to hang up his skates, there's no denying that he's a blue shirt legend, with or without the cup. So. Absolutely.
Well, Jules, thank you so much for doing this. This is awesome. Everybody can hear now. This is why we sound smart if we do. If we can properly read the words we write, or she writes, then then we can manage to make ourselves sound a bit smarter. So thank you so much for doing this. Ryan, as always, thank you very much. And we'll catch you guys next time on the Hockey Minute.
We'd like to take a second and thank you, the listener, for joining us. And a big thanks goes to our writers and production team, Jules, Mark, and Matt. We couldn't do this without you. That's going to do it for us. This is Brandon and Ryan. We'll talk to you next time on the Hockey Minute.